Okay. So, okay, if I throw the marker, throwing the marker gives it an initial velocity. So whilst you give it a push, okay, it gives it an initial velocity, this part. Now, when I throw the marker will never remain, okay, in the air. It will drop to the ground, and it is gravity which does that. So the marker would fall under the influence of gravity, neglecting resistance. In projectile motion, one of the key factors or consideration is that we have to ensure that air resistance is neglected or it is not there. And that is not to say that when you want to throw something, go and lock yourself up in your room, close all windows, right? But you see, your line is breaking. It's just an instance I'm creating, okay? So what we, hello, Amma.
Mr. Jia, please, like I'm trying to say, I'm saying maybe if the wind is blowing very hard.
Oh,
then,
I get
outside.
your question. I get your question. I was just making a bit of comic relief out of it. Okay. So you see, what it means is that we have to, for objects that are often projected, there are conditions because air resistance affects projectile motion. Okay, it has to be thrown or projected when there's no or little air blowing. Because if the wind velocity is great, the object thrown will not get to the destination. Let me give you a typical instance. When you are on top of a story building and you want to throw something to a friend down, okay, at the ground, and wind is blowing, whatever you throw will never get to the intended destination. Correct or wrong? Correct or wrong?
Correct.
Correct. So you can only do that when you realize wind velocity is less. That is the consideration of neglecting air resistance. Those of you who are a fan of playing or fan of TT, the TT, table tennis, or the long tennis, you can't play it effectively at an area where wind velocity is great. That is why these games are indoor games. And by playing it indoor, you have taken out that aspect of air resistance. Please, are we okay?
Yes, sir.
There are.
Give an instance.
Come again.
I want to give another example.
Go ahead. I'll be glad.
The javelin throw.
Exactly. The throwing of a javelin is projectile. Yes. You don't do that when wind is blowing. It will just misdirect it. Thank you for the example. Perfect one.
Wow.
Okay. And then even football, playing of football. When you are playing soccer and the wind velocity is so much, the referee would have to stop the match for a while. Because if the wind is blowing and you kick the ball, kicking the ball gives it the initial velocity. Okay. And if air resistance is so much, it will not go anywhere. It will not get to a player. It won't score. So the best thing the referee can do is that let's wait. By waiting, all that the referee is saying is that let the wind speed reduce. under a minimal wind velocity or no. So that is in the absence of air resistance part, because air resistance affect projectile motion. So projectile motion is applied when playing TT, long tennis, javelin, shooting, kicking a ball, and then throwing of missiles. Missiles here, I mean bomb, okay, firing bomb or missile from one location to another, and then firing of bullets, shooting, firing of bullets is also under projectile motion. You see, for firing of missiles, if the military will want to fire missile from one location to the another, here they cannot wait. Fine, they can, but if you are being attacked, okay, if it is an ongoing situation, exchange of missiles, and you are being attacked, you cannot say that, oh, let me wait, when the wind speed goes down, then I fire. By the time the wind speed goes down and you fire, you are killed. Okay, so in this particular situation, hardly can you ignore or eliminate air resistance. So what they do is that they give the bullet a very huge velocity, speed. Look at when a gun is fired or bullet is fired, look at the speed of the bullet. It is given huge velocity, because the reason behind that is that for the missile to reach its target, that is one. Because if you don't give it much speed, by the time it gets to its destination, wind has reduced its speed, and so it cannot travel to the intended destination. Then another way of overcoming air resistance is that, you see, no bullets or missile is designed like my calculator. A bullet fired and it's coming this big as my calculator. No. Bullet is always designed at the tip of the marker, like this. A pointed edge. Okay. And you see, just as aeroplane cars are designed in a streamlined shape, okay, to reduce air resistance. So this pointed end will pierce into the air, and then because of its architecture, the air can just move around it without resisting it much. So these are giving it a huge initial velocity, and then the streamlined shape of the missile reduces the air resistance, which can possibly affect projectile motions. Any questions? Another application of projectile motion is during golfing. When you are playing golf. Okay, at Sumatra Golf Club, Kumasi Golf Club. Look at, during golfing, they also apply projectile motion. The ball will be put in place and then give it an initial velocity, and then it will travel from one end to an intended target or destination. So golfing, okay, golfing or golfers also apply projectile motion. Zuviel, I think please mute yourself, unless you can unmute if you want to talk. Okay. All right. So that is projectile motion. Any question? All right, go ahead. Lower hand, go ahead.
Mr. Eja, please, is your hand.
It's not my hand, though. All right. Me, my hand is not like this. So. Okay. All right. So let's look at some.
Mr. Eja,
Hello, Amma.
Ikebia, please, I want to ask a question.
Go
I want
ahead.
to ask why, when the wind is blowing very hard and it's moving us backwards, like if you are trying to walk in a place where the wind is blowing very hard, then we are moving backwards, like it's pushing us backwards.
And the wind is a force, comes with a force, energy. Okay. So if you are against a direction, you see, in the same way, if you are also moving along the direction of the wind, it will also be pushing you forward. Okay. So Amma, if you are within its direction, it will add up to your speed, and it will be pushing you forward. In the same way, if you are moving oppositely to the direction of the wind, then it will be pulling you, okay, pushing you backward. Vectors, one force, a force which is you, and then another force against you, which is, okay, the wind force. So that's how, okay, it occurs. When you are against a direction, it will be pushing you backward. When you are in its direction, it will be pushing you along. It will adapt your own force, right?
Okay, sir, thank you.
All right. Now let's look at types, what I'll say as types of projectile motion. We have one type I will call as one-dimensional projectile motion. One-dimensional projectile motion. Then we have two-dimensional what we also call as the oblique projection. Oblique two-dimensional or oblique projection. Under the one-dimensional projectile motion, an example is firing a gun. Firing a gun, missile, firing a gun. You see, whenever you somebody wants to shoot a bullet, it is directed to the target, whether close or distance, and then fired. So firing a gun falls under one-dimensional projectile motion, or firing a bullet from an helicopter or aeroplane towards the ground. So examples. One, we are firing a gun. A gun or missile from a helicopter or aircraft. Firing a gun or missile from a helicopter or aircraft. We can also be throwing an object throwing an object to a friend. From the floor of a story building. Okay. Yes. All this would give you a one-dimensional projectile motion. So let's look at somebody on top of a story building and then throwing an object. Okay, so this is the ground level. From the ground to wherever the person is, this is the object. So from the ground to where the object, the projectile is, has a height, vertical height, h. Hello, are we there?
Yes, please.
Okay. H. Now the object is given an initial velocity. Initial velocity u. When the object is fired or thrown, this is the path it will take. The object would go horizontal, and then with time will be directed downwards to the ground. So it's like, okay, having your pen in your hand and then initially throwing it horizontally, you are assuming that somebody is at a distance and you are throwing your pen, okay, to the person on the floor. Here we don't expect the person to catch the object in the air, but it's like throwing it to the ground. Okay, so this is the path it will take. It will go horizontal first. The velocity given will be horizontal, and then due to gravity, the object's path, okay, will be directed to the ground. So it drops here. So the object drops on the ground. Bam. This is an example of one-dimensional projectile motion. So if a missile is fired from a helicopter, okay, while the helicopter is in the air, that's shooting, the bullet would go horizontal, then gravity will push it down till it drops on the ground. This is the path. Are we okay? Are we okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So now this is what I want us to do. Let's follow the object till it drops on the ground. So initially, this is where the object initially is. Now it is here. After time t1, okay, the object is now here. After another time, the object is here. Then, so this is t2. And finally, the object is on the ground. So this is the path. Don't forget that it will take different times for the object to come here, and come here. Do you agree with me?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
So it will take the time t3 to drop on the ground. Okay, when it is initially thrown, after a few seconds it will come here, after another second it will come here, then now at every position of the object, we want to trace the object's position to its initial position. So we are comparing the object's new location to the old location. If we consider the object's being here, taking the time T1, we realize that when we trace the object's initial position to its new position, this is it. We are tracing from the initial position to the final position. We realize that horizontally, the object has covered a certain distance x from the original position. This is its new position. Horizontally, the object would cover this distance before it is here. So let's denote this horizontal distance covered by the object with the letter x1. Now, vertically, we also see that the object has covered a very small position from the initial position. This is its final position. Vertically, it has covered this small height from here to here. So let's also name this vertical height y1 from the original position to the new position. It has covered this small vertical height, and we are calling it y1. Please, are we okay?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Good. Now let's look at the object is now here. We are at every point tracing what is the object's displacement from its original position, both horizontally and vertically. That's what we are doing. So the new position, if we trace it to the original position, we realize that it has horizontally covered this distance from this location to this location. And from here to here, let's call it x2. Then vertically, we also realize that the object has covered a vertical displacement y2. Are we there?
Sir, can you repeat what you said? I didn't hear.
The object is here. We want to trace from its original position a horizontal distance covered by the object from its original position. This is it. Okay. I just want to get something to illustrate. So if we trace its original position here, this is it. Okay. By its new position, it has covered this distance, representing the width of the book. And we are calling that as x2. Okay. Then vertically, we also realize that it has covered this distance of the height of the marker, and that is what we are calling as y2. Okay. The new position
Okay.
and the old position, right?
Okay.
Good. So y2 is here, x2 is this distance. Then when it finally drops on the ground, okay, what is the object's displacement or distance from the original position horizontally and vertically? Horizontally, we realize that it will cover this distance. Okay, this distance, which we'll call as x3. Then vertically, it will cover this whole height from the ground, from here to its original position. And this is what we initially represented by capital H. But let's represent this by y3, and we know y3 is equal to capital H. Are we okay?
sir.
Are we
Yes,
okay?
please.
Good.
Yes, please.
So what is the observation? The observation is that at every new position of the body, there is a vertical height covered and then a horizontal distance x covered from the original position. So for t, at time t 1 seconds, the body will cover a horizontal distance x1, a vertical distance y1. For time t is equal to t2, the body will be displaced from its original position by x2 and then vertically by y2. Then for t is equal to 3, the body will be displaced from its original position by x3 and vertically by y3, which is equal to the height from the ground. The initial the height of the initial position of the body from the ground, right? And so you see, from our analysis, we see a vertical distance covered and then a horizontal distance covered as well. Okay, because of this, we look at projectile motion, or we picture it both horizontally and then vertically, because at every time t, there is a horizontal distance covered and then a vertical distance covered. Are we okay?
Yes, please.
Good.
Yes, please.
So let's look at the body's horizontal analysis. The body's horizontal analysis. So analyzing it horizontally, we are analyzing the motion horizontally. Projectile motion dwells on some conditions. The first condition is that air resistance is neglected. We assume that there is no air resistance. No air must blow. Okay. Now, if a body is moving horizontally, we are not affected by gravity. Gravity affects us when we are within the field, the gravitational field. Yes, once we find ourselves on the surface of the earth, we are within the gravitational field, all right. But gravitational pull, okay, increases with increasing height. So if my height to the surface of the earth is 0, I don't have any effect of gravity or a pull of gravity on me. Now, if I dare to jump, if I try to jump, then gravity will show me, because by jumping, I'm increasing my height from the surface of the earth. Please, are you with me?
No, please.
You see?
No, please.
What is force of gravity? Force of gravity is a force, it's a natural force that pulls objects towards the center of the earth, right? Now, if you are walking on the surface of the earth where gravity is the reference, where the reference point is 0, okay, you don't experience gravitational pull, though you are in the gravitational field. So long as you find yourself on earth, you are within the gravitational field. This is similar to magnetic field. Okay, a magnetic material would experience magnetic force when it is within a magnetic, the region around the bar magnet, and that's a magnetic field, right? Once we find ourselves on the surface of the earth, we are within the gravitational field, but the pull on us is 0 because our vertical height from the ground, okay, is 0. Now, if you try to jump, you experience gravitational pull immensely, because you are increasing your height from the surface of the earth. So I jump. When I try to jump up, there will be some distance from the surface of the earth. Then I will experience gravitational pull. It will pull me down back to the earth. Do you understand what I mean? And so with gravity, if there's the surface of the earth, if an object is here, okay, from here to the surface of the H, and then an object is here, from this point to this point, H1, then an object is here, from the surface of the earth to where the object is, we are saying H3. Effect of gravity on this object is greater than this and this, because over here, the height is great. Please, are we okay?
Yes, please.
That is why we say potential energy, which is
No, please not go back.
potential energy, which is the work done, okay, in moving an object from the surface of the earth to a point within the gravitational field, is given by mgh. So if we want to calculate the potential energy of the object here, this will be equal to the mass of the object, m, times gravity times this height, h3. Then if we want to calculate the potential energy here, the mass of the objects, m1, m2, m3. So m2 times g times h2. Then m3, PE for m3 becomes m3 times g times h1. Now, this will be greater than this because its height from the ground is greater. Are we okay? Are we okay?
Yes, please.
Now, when an object is just here on the ground, there wouldn't be any, the potential energy of the body here is zero because the body hasn't covered any vertical height h. And so the pull of gravity on the object is not there because it hasn't covered any vertical height h. That is what I mean. So if an object is moving horizontally along the surface of the earth, the effect, the pull of gravity on the body is non-existent. However, if the body increases its height from the surface of the earth, then the gravitational pull on the object will be greatly. That is what I mean. Are we okay?
Yes, please. He said,
All right.
yeah.
Hello.
Oh, it's okay. I can now see.
Okay. I want to clear this side and then continue on my sketch. So if you are writing, let's quickly do that. And then
He said, yeah.
hello.
Please, for the H3, please, what? Okay, I can now see. Oh, sorry.
All right. Do I clean it? Okay. So when we are looking at the horizontal analysis, X1, X2, X3, you see, horizontally, air resistance is neglected. Effect of gravity horizontally is non-existent. Effect of gravity is zero. So if air resistance is neglected and gravity is nil, then we can say that horizontally, the object's initial velocity would be equal to the final velocity. The object is given an initial velocity, okay, horizontally. Okay, because air resistance is not there, gravity has no effect horizontally. Then initial velocity would always be equal to the final velocity horizontally, because all the actors and then the actresses, okay, required to reduce the speed are not there. Okay, if I'm running, the only thing that can reduce my speed can be air resistance. It can also be friction. Okay, horizontally, gravity is not there. But once air resistance is not there, friction is not there, and no gravity, then it means that there's nothing to reduce my initial speed. What I begin with is what I end with. Please, are we okay?
No, please.
You see, we are looking at horizontal analysis. Okay, horizontal part, please mute yourself. Anything horizontal. Horizontally, you see, in projectile motion, we have neglected air resistance. Air resistance is not there. Then there is no gravity, effect of gravity horizontally. Because the body is not on the ground, friction is also not